This tutorial explains how to use League Lab to schedule games for your league or tournament. We're starting off here at our dashboard, and we're going to choose the league we want to schedule and click Schedule and Scores. This takes us to the scheduling interface, and we'll start off with a brief overview of this page. First, we see a list of all the dates for this league, and we see that in each date we have 0 games scheduled. By the time we're done, we will have some games scheduled, so we'll see those zeros change. We can also use these dates to jump down to see a particular date. So if we're interested in February 10th, we can click that and we jump down to February 10th in the schedule grid. This rectangular grid is what we're going to be using to place real games into those empty game slots. The next thing we see here is we have the status of our schedule. The schedule is currently disabled on the public site, and that's because we don't have any games yet. All schedules start out disabled, but once you've added some games, there'll be a button here that you can use to publish the site and make it live for the public to see. We also have controls here to add new dates, times, fields, and locations to this league in case as you're working you realize you need more space. If you have that available, you can add that right there. That's also part of the league setup, but it's here for convenience as well. We also have the schedule cruncher, which isn't active right now, but we will see it in just a few minutes. Lastly, we have the actual schedule grid. By clicking here where the 2 p.m. row meets the field 1 column, we can bring up our game editor for that slot, and we can choose some teams to play against each other at that time on that field. Turns out we don't have any teams at this moment, which is probably the situation that you'll be in when you are just starting out with your demo account. So let me show you how to add some teams just to test with scheduling. What we're going to do is go to the top of the page. For every page pertaining to this particular league or tournament, we're going to see an interface like this that lets us jump around to different tasks related to that league. What we're interested in is adding some teams, so we're going to click the Teams and Players link right here. So this is where we manage all the teams and players for this particular league. Checking out the Teams section, we see that we have one team, Test Team A, which is the team I used for my test registration. Why wasn't it in the schedule interface? Because it's still in not offered status. The schedule interface only lets you schedule teams that are confirmed so that we know that they really are in the league before we put them on the schedule. So if we change this team's status to confirmed, it wants to send an email to the captain, which is me, to notify me of the change. Sure, now I know my team's confirmed. Now that the team is confirmed, we will be able to see them on the schedule page and put them into games. But we need more than one team, so we will have to add some more. I'm going to click Add a Team here. And since we're only adding these teams for scheduling purposes, I'm going to make them all individual teams because they're the quickest to create. If I uncheck this box here, I can create regular teams, optionally adding some captain info in there if I want. But normally, the regular teams will be registering themselves on the website. So I'm just going to create teams B through H here as individual teams. Now I can add a team again. And I will continue to add these teams, and I will join you when they're all complete. Okay, we have our 8 teams, teams A through H, and now we're ready to go try the scheduling interface again. We can go back up here to the top to our league navigation, and we can click Schedule and Scores. Now, if we go back to our 2 p.m. Field 1 slot, open up the game editor, we do have some teams to choose from here. So let's make Test Team A play Team B at this slot. When we alter the information here, it tells us we have new changes, and we click Save to lock those in. Now you notice that some more controls pop up here. These are things that we can use to record the results once the game's over. But for now, we've got our teams set. We can close that game, and we see that we do have Test Team A versus Team B in that slot. We can open up the next slot, and maybe we want C to play D here. We can save that game. Now if we don't want to bother closing this window, we can just click the next game slot that we want to work with. So we can go right here to the 330 field 1, and we can choose the teams to play there. Let's do teams E versus F. Notice if we try to move away without saving, we get a note that says you have unsaved changes, and we probably don't want to navigate away until we've saved them. So I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to save that game. We can move on to our last slot here. Now to make everything shake out nicely, this game should be between G and H, but I'm going to try scheduling F and H to see what happens. So we have F versus H, we save that. What we get is an alert down here in red that says we have a conflict. Team F already has a game at this time. So we better fix that. We save that, and we have no alerts. So keeping an eye on this alert section at the bottom of our game editor can help you avoid accidentally scheduling conflicts, rematches, and double headers. It won't physically forbid those things because you're the expert, so we just want to make you aware of what's going on. Aside from the alerts, we also have a couple of other ways to monitor the fairness of your schedule as you go. If we click Game Counts, we can see how many games each team has so far on its schedule for the season. We see that every team has one game, and so that means we've been doling out the games fairly so far, and we're happy about that. We can also look at the matchup grid, which shows how many times a pair of teams meet each other in the season. So if we look at this cell there, we have a 0. If we hover over that 0, it tells us that the teams corresponding to numbers 3 and 7 there, teams A and team D, don't have a game against each other at this point. But if we hover over this 1 here, we see team A versus team B do have one game against each other. So as you go, these zeros will change, and as soon as you get a 2, that's a rematch. So to do the schedule equally, you don't want any 2s while you still have zeros. You want to keep all those numbers as even as possible. That lets you create a balanced schedule. When we're ready to publish our schedule, we can move back up to the top controls here to where we see that our schedule is still disabled, and we can click Make Live. This will put our schedule on the public website so that our players can come and find out that if, for instance, they're on Test Team A, they should be at City Park on Field 1 in time for their 2 p.m. game. You can also, if you need to, disable the schedule again later if you're going to make more changes so that people don't see the schedule while it's in a sort of an in-between state and get bad information about when their games are going to be. Since we're going to continue to work with this schedule, I'm going to disable that again so that nobody looks at it while we're still changing it. So now it's disabled again. They won't be able to see the schedule on the public site. So now we've covered everything you need to know to manually create your own schedules and publish them on your League Lab public website. If your scheduling needs are pretty straightforward though, you might want to try using the Schedule Cruncher down here to automatically generate your games. If we look at the Schedule Cruncher right now, it says it doesn't want to work on the schedule because there are manual changes in there. So the Schedule Cruncher is really designed to work from a blank slate. If you aren't particularly attached to the games that you have scheduled here and you want to clear them out and start over doing things automatically with the Schedule Cruncher, you can just click Clear Schedule here. And we won't be able to undo this, so we want to make sure that we really do want to get rid of all those games. In this case, yes, we're okay with that. Now that the schedule is nice and empty, the Schedule Cruncher is available, so we can open it up and see how it works. First, the Schedule Cruncher wants us to be aware of a few things before we start. The first thing is that we need to make sure we have all of our teams in the system and in confirmed status. Otherwise, they won't get scheduled and there won't be room on the schedule left for them. Similarly with the dates and times and fields, we need to make sure that the Schedule Cruncher knows about all the slots that you want it to put games into. So you need to have those all locked in before you turn on the Schedule Cruncher. Lastly, we can fine-tune the slots by disabling some of them. If we look down in the schedule grid, we see these little buttons in the upper right of each slot. Clicking them toggles the status of that slot. So just because we sometimes have games on field 2 and we sometimes have games at 3:30 doesn't mean that we necessarily will have a game on field 2 at 3:30. If we don't want to allow that to happen, we can disable this slot here. So now that that slot's not available, any co-workers or the Schedule Cruncher will know not to put any games into that slot. So before you turn on the Schedule Cruncher, you may want to go through and disable some of those slots if you're not really going to use them. In this case, we have just enough slots to give all of our teams one game every day if we leave them all active. So we're going to leave all of our slots active for this go around. The next thing that we need to look at is which dates the Schedule Cruncher should use. It lets us choose the dates because often we're going to reserve some dates for playoffs. So in this case, I'm going to leave that last date for playoffs, and then I'm going to ask the Schedule Cruncher to put games into all of the other dates. To start the Schedule Cruncher, we just click Crunch Schedule and it will come back to us with our schedule all filled in. So now we see that on every date except the last date we've got 4 games. So every slot is full, all 4 game slots on every date. If we open up the game counts, every team has 7 games, so that's fair. If we open up the matchup grid, we have 1s in every space, so we've scheduled exactly 1 full round robin. Now if you look at this and it turns out not to be right because you know that Team D's got too many 2 o'clock games and they really would rather play later, or something along those lines, you have a few options to sort of work with the schedule from here. One of the options is you can go back up to the Schedule Cruncher and ask it to shuffle the schedule again. This will just come back with another random schedule using the same parameters as the first time. And maybe this time, or maybe if you shuffle it one more time, you'll get something that's more acceptable. Of course, relying on randomness may not always work, so another thing you can do is you can take the schedule that the Schedule Cruncher has created and you can edit those games. So you can delete them there, you can alter the teams, and you can just change it until it suits what you need. If you're doing that, you can keep an eye on the game counts and the matchup grid to make sure that you're maintaining that fairness that we want in our schedule. Finally, if you need to start over from scratch and do a manual schedule, you can just click Clear Schedule here and start over, adding the games one at a time, like we did before, the old-fashioned way. Some leagues have lots of extra criteria that the Schedule Cruncher can't accommodate, and in that case you can do your calculations offline, decide who should play whom, and use League Lab to publish your schedule and your scores just the same. So now you know everything you need to know to create and publish your league and tournament schedules on League Lab.